Hi, I'm David Katz, the artistic director of the American Playwriting Foundation, and I'm thrilled that you're joining us for this celebration of Max Yu and his Relentless Award-winning play, Nightwatch. I'd also like to thank you for joining us in this process that was established in honor of Philip Seymour Hoffman and that exists to extend Phil's legacy as a champion of American playwrights. And now Max is going to say a few words before excerpts from his play are going to be read. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. Nightwatch is a play that I wrote for my senior thesis in college. And tonight you're going to be watching an excerpt from it. You're going to be watching 3 separate scenes from it. So yeah, I hope you enjoy.
Nightwatch by Max Yu, directed by Nicholas Polonio, featuring Clem, Cheung, Jarrett, Jung, Sky Smith, and Jade Wu.
They say you never leave where you grew up. I no longer see my home. I left my home behind. I left a part of myself behind. A little red boy is what I left. But the memories are clearer than ever. The little red boy was the most red of them all. His family was red. His mother and father lived and breathed red. When the factory closed down for the night, they stayed behind to clean up. His father went out to the city to watch the revolution, while his mother sewed cloth shoes for him, since he ran around so much, gathering and eating ideas away in a stomach who always knew best. One day, the little red boy came home and accused his parents of being counter-revolutionaries. So they beat him. They knew it wasn't his fault, but it made them that much more scared that he didn't know better. Hong, that is how you say red in Chinese. H-O-N-G, second tone, the romanticized version. Pinyin, which came with the birth of the People's Republic of China. Pinyin, a system made to let others learn Chinese, but made by Chinese, that slowly made its way into schools, the same schools that cropped up everywhere, even in the countryside, because Chairman Mao said education is important, but not academia. So on his first lesson of English, he learned to say red. The next day, someone came in and said, "Stop learning English. Who needs to learn the language of dogs?" Red meant seeing filth. He knew America was filth because filth can't help but spread. That's why they bombed Vietnam. That's why they lynched Black people. Hong, to write red, you have to write the character for work. It was like the character Red was meant to be red. He wanted everyone to know how red he was. The little red boy wanted that power. And so he wrote and wrote. But one day, while the little red boy is eating, his neighbors barge in, his friends, his classmates, now enemies. They grab the little boy's arms. "It's you! It's you who wrote that. Here, right here. This is your name. This is your fate." He didn't finish eating. And the parents, well, mother, father, they couldn't do anything. They could only watch as their son is taken away. And the little red boy keeps screaming and screaming as everyone turns on him, but no one hears him scream. Because his screaming is exactly what everyone wants to hear. or you keep your mouth shut and you go to the countryside. That's what Chairman Mao wants. He wants the youth of China to go to the countryside to learn from the farmers, the peasants, the true inheritors of the world. Plus, it'll keep you out of trouble. And I shouldn't need to say this, but you don't have a choice in this. I'll make sure of that.
San Francisco, Chinatown. The present, Nine Eyes' apartment. It's dark. The door opens. Leo enters.
雨良，是你吗？
Nine Nine?
Leo turns on the light. Nine Eyes waiting for him.
我等了你半天。
Were you just sitting in the dark?
Save electricity.
Okay.
I was waiting for you.
You didn't have to.
你跑了哪里去？
I was walking around.
Walking around doing what?
Just walking around.
You make me wait so long. It's almost 9.
It's not that late.
For me, it is.
Well, then just go to sleep. I'll be fine.
I can't. I can't go to sleep unless you're home. Your father not here, so I have to wait now. 你饭吃了吗?
Yeah, I ate.
Did you buy?
Yeah.
浪费钱. I already have left over from Bonnie.
Sorry.
Did you talk to her after I left?
Yeah, we talked.
You think she pretty?
Sure.
She very pretty.
Yep.
She hard worker. She work at Chinese school too. She helped me read Chinese. How 可怜, no mother. She didn't even live past 50. 真是可怜. But Bonnie still work every day. At dim sum shop. Always good, honest work. She would be good girlfriend.
Sure.
You need to find a Chinese woman who can cook. If you marry white girl, then you can't eat Chinese food.
Of course.
She from Beijing. 她会做简便锅子给你吃.
Yep. Very tasty.
You could learn from her. She's very vigilant.
I think you mean diligent.
You correct me? Your Chinese still bad. 如果我是说中国人，你听不懂，你小孩子。
I'm just letting you know.
Bonnie's Chinese is much better than yours.
Not that wrong. She was born in Beijing. I was born here.
That means you can learn from her. She can read too. Can you read at least 100 characters?
I can read more than you. 对不起，奶奶. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I'm really tired right now.
没有关系。回睡吧。Don't sleep too late.
Nai-Nai?
Hmm.
Do you remember saying how you watched over Grandpa's ashes for a night?
Yes.
I'm gonna do that for my father.
Good. That's good.
Can you tell me what to do?
You watch him.
Okay. Why did you watch over Grandpa's ashes?
To honor him. To watch over him.
Do you do anything else?
No, you watch over the dead.
Oh.
See, that's why I'm surprised you want to do it.
Well, I want to do something. Should I do something?
Only if you want to.
Have you done anything for his death?
I set up altar.
Did you watch over his ashes?
No. Your father's supposed to do that with my ashes. I didn't expect you to do anything. You're in college. You're still a child.
I'm 20.
Your father started cooking for the family when he was 10. Your father started working in the factory when he was 15. You never worked. You're not even a man yet.
But I'm not a child.
Give me your hands. See? No callous, no work. You're just a 识字贩子.
An intellectual?
Yes, intellectual. We didn't send you to college for nothing. You're lucky to still be a child. Your father grew up fast. Back then, all children grew up fast. Your grandpa and I worked in a factory all day. And there's no babysitters because Jung didn't allow it. So kids do everything themselves. I don't remember being a child. I always have to take care of my younger brothers and sisters. Bonnie is not a child. She works every day, but she still come by and check on me. But you just come home without calling me, and now you spend all day walking around? That's why I didn't call you when your father died. That's why I asked Bonnie to make your father's ashes.
Bonnie did the cremation?
Yes. We didn't want to bother you in college. You should be studying, making a better life for yourself. I didn't even know your final tests were over already. When does your spring break end?
I don't know yet.
When do classes start again?
They haven't released the schedule yet.
Oh, well, they better do it soon.
I'll check online right now.
明天做吧. Go to sleep.
Nai leaves. Leo goes to his room. He sits on his bed. He takes out his weed vape and opens the window. He blows out the window. He tries to fall asleep. A chilly San Francisco air breathes through the window. No cars go. Nai enters.
Why you open the window? It's cold.
Leo hides the vape.
I needed fresh air.
Are you cold?
I'm okay.
Do you want more blankets?
Night. I'm fine.
You shouldn't sleep with the window open.
I'll close it.
You'll get sick. See? You're already sick. Your arm is getting worse. Are you stressed?
I'm fine.
You go out too late, always going out. It's too tiring. That's why your chi too hot right now.
It's not true.
What?
It's not true. This whole thing about my chi being too hot, it's bullshit. Why do you focus on this? Ever since I got back, you seem so normal. You barely even talk about my father. You seem more interested in my chi or in my dating life than in the fact that your son is dead. My father is dead. You're asking me if I'm stressed? Of course I'm stressed, but you don't seem that sad.
Why do you smoke?
What?
When I came in the smoking, I'm 85, but I'm not blind. Does it help?
I think so.
Why do you smoke?
I think helps me not think about him. Helps me not think about anything.
I want that too. You think I'm not sad? Every day I'm sad. Every day I hurt. Here, I hurt by myself. But I have to get up every morning, right? Water from the river is always fresh because it's always moving. Meat always have bone. There's no meat without bone. There's always bone. Bone stays. I have to keep moving. I can't just stay in bed. I can't think about the past. I can't think about the countryside. Do you know how bad it was? Do you know what capitalism is? Do you know what it's like to outlive your children?
Jung, 1972. The family home, building 15, room 8. A small one-room dorm where the family sleeps in. Nai enters in, followed by Ba. She locks the door behind her.
Have you eaten?
No.
Forgetting to eat. You're lucky the leftovers didn't spoil.
Thanks.
You should be lucky we have leftovers at all.
Yes, thank you.
When did you get here?
Earlier this morning, around sunrise.
Sunrise.
Yeah.
You traveled through the night?
Yeah.
How?
I drove
You drove what?
a motorcycle.
So that explains the motorcycle parked in front of the building.
Yep.
A motorcycle looks weird next to the bicycles.
Yeah.
So it's yours?
Kind of.
What's that supposed to mean? Is it yours or not?
Ma, can I at least have a moment to eat?
How is it?
Dry.
What would you expect?
I'm not complaining.
You must be starving.
I'm fine.
Driving through the night and on a motorcycle too. Since when can you drive a motorcycle?
I have learned a great deal from the hardworking peasants of the countryside.
I thought you'd learn something like useful, like plowing.
That too.
Is that enough?
I'm fine.
Your father will be home soon with some food. Why did you leave?
I just wanted to come back and visit.
You didn't
Is it
even
okay?
send a letter telling us you'd be back. Have you sent any letters at all?
No. It was kind of an impromptu thing to come back.
What does that mean?
I have a reason. Gonna fix the radio.
The farmers sent you?
They needed a new radio.
Ye enters with food. He closes the door and locks it.
Why are you back?
I'm visiting.
In a motorcycle?
Farmers gave it to me because I'm coming back to the city to fix their radio. I can build them. See? The
He
farmer's
takes-
radio.
A radio out from his satchel.
The farm's radio broke down during the winter, so I took it apart and combined it with some other components to make a new one. The sound can still be improved, though, and the proper components can only be found in the city.
I don't care about that right now.
Once you fix the radio, you go back?
Of course. I have to return it, right? See, I only need this last component, which I can pick up at the electronics store in the city, because if I play it right now...
And you'll stay there?
What?
When you return the radio, are you going to stay there?
Yeah, for a while.
For a while?
Well, I was wondering if I could get a job at the factory.
Damn it. Is that what this is all about?
I'm just saying, long-term wise,
You're saying you don't want to go back.
I learned what I needed to learn from the farmers,
You've stayed less than a year.
which is enough for me.
Look at your classmates. Comrade Jia and Song. You know, the ones who humiliated me today in public.
Quiet down.
They labored in the countryside for at least a year. And now here you are wanting to come back with your tail between your legs, like a lazy capitalist roader.
All right. Look. You came back at a tense time. Your grandfather has been reclassified as a landlord, and soon the entire factory will know.
They already know because of that self-criticism I had to give.
Now he has to work even harder to prove how red he is. Us too, since we're all family, and you suddenly come back doesn't put us in good light.
It looks like we raised a lazy intellectual who's afraid of manual labor.
I can work in the factory. That's manual labor, and I'm good at it. I've already been helping you guys since I was a kid, and I know there is at least one job open for me.
We're good on labor.
There must be an opening. I already have experience.
We all do.
Why don't you want to go back to the countryside?
I just can't take it. Day in and day out, it's the same. Plowing fields, breaking coal, collecting all the animal and human shit and putting it in a bucket for fertilizer.
Well, that is what the countryside is.
It's awful. It's nothing like what we were told. It was fun helping the farmers when we could skip school, but when it's every day, it's unbearable. And the food, it's just one mantou a day. It's dumplings filled with weeds and rice husks. It's hardly food.
That is food. That's what your father and I had to eat.
This is exactly why Chairman Mao wanted the youth to work in the countryside. Kids like you are too pampered in the city. Everything you just said, the plowing, collecting the shit, that is what we have to do. So don't tell us how hard it is. We know you're going to go back and stay there.
But we weren't even welcome there. We're just a bunch of city kids dropped into their farms with no experience. They're better off without us.
Well, that's why it's called education. You're learning and gaining experience.
Can't stay there forever. I'm eventually going to come back and work in the factory.
You know how bad it makes me look? How bad this makes our family look? If you haven't noticed from my little speech at the factory today, they got me by the balls. Now that I'm labeled with landlord blood, I can't afford to screw up. You know how humiliating it is to go in front of all my comrades, even those I supervise, and to tell them I'm a dirty capitalist liar? I didn't know shit. I still have no idea how they tracked down my father and classified him as a landlord. But either way, I can't do shit about it. I keep saying I'm a liar and humiliating myself too. I have to spoil my family name.
One more.
And now you come back, my lazy bourgeois son, who thinks the countryside is too hard for him, who brings back a motorcycle and is here to fix a fucking radio and to beg his father for a job at the factory. Who do you think you are?
Thumping. Someone's upstairs. Ba turns on the radio on full volume to drown out Yeye. It's garbled, but recognizable. The national anthem. Yeye stops talking. Ba looks up at the ceiling. Ba lowers the volume.
They're listening.
End of excerpt.
Thanks everyone for that that reading. And as our panel assembles, I want to tell Max something that was interesting during the process of play selection. One of the interesting things about how we do it is it's totally anonymous as plays are evaluated. Is first our subcommittee that goes through thousands of plays, narrowing them down to 8 that go to the selection committee. But no one has any idea who wrote them. We have no information as they're being evaluated. So there's always a lot of discussion and conjecture about who the writer might be, their experience, if anyone knows them, if just guesswork. And Max, with your play, there's a conversation about that maybe someone that was at least older, middle-aged, someone that had experience in poetry, a novelist. These are kind of the discussions. And then we discover when you're selected as you, and that it was a first play written by a 21-year-old. And so it's really kind of fun and revelatory for us. So I wanted to ask you, as the panel's coming together, to talk a little bit about what your process was in terms of selecting the subject matter that is so rich in terms of history, politics, generational, not the traditional first play. It's so vast.
Yeah, it was interesting choosing that subject matter. What happened was I did playwriting in college, and I became really disillusioned with theater in my junior year of college, and I was about to quit the whole thing. But then I remember, I didn't know what I was doing with my life because I thought I quit theater or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I'm done with it. So I decided and during that time, I just did a lot of other random things. And one random thing was living with my grandmother in China for 3 months in the summer. And during that time, I wanted to establish a relationship with my grandma. And to do that, I had to really understand, where she came from, how she grew up. And, bit by bit, she would tell me these kind of stories. And those stories eventually, through a long process, eventually became Nightwatch. And yeah, and it really all just came from just hearing my grandma talk. And it eventually led me to interviewing a lot of the people at my grandma's home, in Jiangfang, which is an actual place, in Jiangxi. That's an actual clothing factory in Nanchang in Jiangxi province. So yeah, I interviewed a lot of people there, and the people who worked there went to the factory. And yeah, that's kind of how it all, that's where it all came from. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's interesting to me that a lot of from other generation writers that had backgrounds as immigrants try to erase that identity often in writing, and or it's a long process in terms of fully embracing it, and which you have done right off the bat, and that was just one of the things that was so fascinating about it, and to the degree that the work itself felt like as I was saying, someone much older, and perhaps the influence of your grandmother and that, in channeling these voices and the culture. It's so clear how that comes through.
Yeah, no, definitely. It definitely was, writing this play was in a way definitely a way to get closer to my family, just because there's a huge cultural gap. Sure, I lived with my family, my parents, for all my life, but there's always been this very big cultural gap between them. So writing this, and essentially the research of doing it, allowed me to get closer. Now that I know how my grandparents grew up, how my parents grew up, I feel a lot closer to them, and they feel closer to me now that I know exactly what they went through, because it's such a very specific and very specific time period with very specific rules that don't really exist elsewhere in the world. It's so specific, so historically specific. So in a way, that's one of the kind of the great things about me writing about plays. It helped me in my own life.
No. I wanted to introduce our other panelists, Ms. Celine Song, a playwright and a Relentless semifinalist, Gregory Mosher, director, producer, professor, artistic director, everything, and Thomas Bradshaw, a fellow member of the Relentless selection committee. Welcome, gang.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Thomas, do you want to speak at all to our reaction when we were first evaluating the plays in terms of your first response when you first got Max's play and read it?
Sure. I mean, well, first of all, there really wasn't much of a question about which play was going to get selected for the Relentless Award that year. We all basically, we always engage in, some debate, but your play was the clear favorite amongst all of the judges. I'm just gonna, there's so many things that I love about your play, but I've decided I wrote a couple of paragraphs. I'm just gonna read those 2 paragraphs so that I don't ramble for like 15 minutes. So here it goes. And, I hope that what I say about your play is true. So at its core, Nightwatch is an intergenerational family story, but the point of view of each family member is so distinct. I especially love the point of view of the grandparents who grew up and lived most of their adult lives in Maoist China. Max shapes these characters so fully that I, as the reader, felt like I had a true understanding of the lives they lived. This play taught me so much history that I didn't know, yet it never for a moment felt like a history lesson because the inner lives of the characters are so rich and able. The protagonist of the play, Leo, is a first-generation Chinese American, and Max paints an amazing portrait of the pressure that this kid feels to succeed and his inability to live up to those expectations. This is a pattern that we see among the men in the play, Leo, his father, and his grandfather. Each of them have enormous expectations placed on their shoulders, and each of them fail to do what is expected. This does not mean that they're failures in life, but they have failed to live up to their society's expectations. In most plays, the expected resolution is achieved, but not here. The character of Leo does not return to college. He is not clearly set on any path at the end of the play. His future is still uncertain. So in many ways, the play is about failure, which no human being can escape. In many ways, it's the most relatable human experience. And after I finished reading his play, I felt more at home in the world.
Wow, thank you. That was so well written.
We're all writers here, right? So
Yeah.
That was interesting because Thomas, usually, when we're debating plays in the room, Thomas is, it's all passion and fragment, whatever. It's just see you, your demeanor as you are reading from a script is fascinating. I wanted to throw out sort of a topic that hopefully some of you will pick up, which is the issue. Recently with the unfortunate things that have been going on in terms of racism and violence in our country towards the Asian community. It was interesting to me that I was approached by different people about Max's play, and the idea that instantly this play that Max wrote, just as this play that Max wrote about his family, because of the climate, suddenly became, oh, this is pertinent to as a Chinese American. This suddenly, and so this issue of the responsibility that's thrust in a certain way onto any writer that's not white and male, pretty much, in terms of representing, having to represent the group that you come from, whatever that is, and the issues around that. So I was just going to kind of throw out that issue to talk about. Greg, I thought maybe you could speak to it from the only person here that has actually selected and produced plays and had to think about that kind of thing in that respect.
Well, it's not really thanks, David, and congratulations, Max. It's a terrific play. I as I look at the screen and I think about all the plays I read, I just think about how much the three of you, as writers, make a richer and a better American theater. I mean, it's the only kind of theater that makes sense in the 21st century. I left Columbia to go to a public college, Hunter College in New York City, where more than half the students are either immigrants or the children of immigrants. There are dozens of languages spoken in the hallways. And I say to these, and they're, you know, they don't have any money. They work full time and they go to school full time. And I say to them, you guys are the future of the American theater. You don't know it, you don't believe it, but you are. And I care a lot about that kind of American theater. As I say, it's the only kind that interests me right now. And the American theater has always been created by outsiders. When Eugene O'Neill was becoming Eugene O'Neill, boarding houses said, "No dogs, no Irish." You know, it's always been the voices of people who fought their way in, who said, "No, I have something to say, and you will listen to me," and have mustered the skill and had a little bit of luck, as we all need, to do that. And you know, like I don't like Black History Month. I don't understand why every month isn't Black History Month. I don't get it. I mean, why are we doing the August Wilson play in February? It does not make sense to me. Why aren't all American theaters always embracing, I mean, diversity is an overused word right now, but the true, genuine diversity of American culture? And so Max, welcome to the American theater. That's what I want to say to you, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, it is indeed like going to be a wild ride. Because like this is, in a way, like this award has been kind of like my like very like giant kickstart into this American theater world.
Sorry, Thomas.
I while Greg was talking, sorry, I was just thinking more about, Greg was talking about the American theater, so I started thinking about Max's play in the context of the American theater, and our great tradition of psychological realism. And what's funny about Max's play is that it stands very much within that tradition and outside of it at the same exact time, because because we do get such a clear sense of where the characters come from and who they are. But what's amazing is that all these characters are essentially unknowable to each other. They're with each other, they're trapped with each other, but yet they don't really know each other, and they struggle to connect, and they can't figure out why each other are doing the things that they're doing. And many plays in the American theater, the characters are wholly explainable. They explain their actions, they explain where they're coming from, they explain who they are, and everything is known, knowable to the audience and to the characters themselves. And I just find Max's play to be so much truer to life than most plays that I go see or read, because I'm like, this is my family. You know what I mean? I've known my mother for my entire life, and yet I still don't know why she does some of the things that she does. And I really feel like Max is able to bring that out with his play with great humor, even though a lot of the subject matter is quite dark.
Yeah, I mean, something that that part of the conversation is sort of coming up for me is this idea of American theater generally, and also just when we talk about it in terms of like a specifically Asian American context, where there is a lot of questions and insecurities and conversations that are happening about becoming a part of America, how good of a member of American you are, how good of an American you are, how good of a citizen, how good of this person, how good of everything. There's so much like good immigrant energy that I think it is often quite expected, and is a very big part of the kinds of things that Asian American artists specifically deal with. Because I think that both because of the proximity to whiteness and white patriarchy, and because of the ways in which that it is never going to be possible for Asian Americans to be white or picture. I mean, in my case, a man, but I mean, you see what I mean. I feel like because of that, I think that there is always that is always a big conversation that is happening in between Asian American artists. You know, I know Max and I we talk about it sometimes. I feel like, but I think the thing to my approach to it, and I think that it is certainly Max's approach, is to not worry too much about it and to tell stories and write plays that you want to write. And to me, the reason why I'm so proud to call Max my peer, and the reason why I'm so proud to be like Max's friend, and the reason why I'm like, you know, like it's just always so nice to have like a fellow person who like, you know, deal with power in the same way that I do in this ridiculous industry of theater. I feel like the reason why I'm so proud of him and I'm so like impressed with him, and I just, you know, all those things are literally coming from the fact that it was very clear to me that Max did not really give a shit about those things. He wanted to just talk about his family. And, you know, I think that at the end of the day, I think the rest of it is all noise. The rest of it is after the fact conversation. Actually, the thing that's actually happening is that, like, well, as Max Yu, who is an artist, and an artist has a very specific kind of autonomy, what Max Yu as an artist wants to talk about. And it could literally be anything. And at this time, for Max, it was this. I'm very excited to find out what is the next thing that Max wants to write about, right? And it could literally be something like this. It could be, maybe Max wants to do something about his family again. Maybe it has nothing to do with anything. And maybe he wants to write the Avengers. Like, I don't know. I think a part of being an artist and part of supporting artists and supporting young artists is about and I say that as somebody who needs support. I think that it is sort of to not always put it in the specific context of the way that the industry feels about us, but actually more about how Max feels about his life and his soul. And, you know, that's sort of why that's something that was coming up for me just now.
That not giving a shit quality is what made the selection committee sit up, because that is in the spirit of the award and in the spirit of Phil's approach to theater. Anything that smacks of someone that's thinking, how am I getting produced? Who am I trying to please? Any of that, you know, it was the kind of thing that Phil would sniff out and reject out of hand. And it's one of our criteria. And so the fearlessness of the approach in every way of you're just telling the story, and also something that also feels so that it could only be a play. And it's not like, oh, you know, maybe the movie will get optioned. Maybe it was a TV idea and you wrote it. It's like, it's theater, it's a play, and it's the whole like DNA, and it's such, you know, so one of the beautiful things about it.
Yeah, Max, you were saying earlier that you wrote it because you were like, I mean, I guess I can't, like, you know what I mean? Like, I give up on this. I give up on this crap. And then that was a big part of what was helpful for your motivation for, you know what I mean, being able to write this. Yeah.
Yeah, because I also was kind of done with theater because I was being in workshops and like people say, like, you know, in UCLA, like I'm like the only Chinese American playwright there in my college, and like it was interesting because like people say like, oh yeah, Max is a cool Asian American Chinese American playwright, you should really know him, and I'm like, they're being very nice. But I just always felt weird about that label, and I felt like I felt like I had to do something about that, or like I should like wear a shirt saying, you know, I'm Chinese, in addition to, you know, I have a Chinese face. But that was one reason why like it made me give a lot of shits that made me like not do any kind of writing. But once I was kind of like, you know, fuck this, basically, you know, honestly, then that was like when I was like able to actually like do something. And like I think like it was actually great in the fact that not many people even knew I was writing this play in college. Not many people were really interested in it. Even in my stage reading, like only a few people came. more than half the actors were not even from my own college, because there weren't that many Asian people to really do it in my college. I had to get from like other people outside the college. Like just that, like it was so small, like that allowed me to focus on like not giving a shit. Like that kind of like being like in the dark in a way, like that was actually like extremely helpful, like looking back.
Yeah.
I can relate to your solitude as the only Asian in that program. Is I've waited my entire career to meet another Jewish writer.
Great joke.
Anecdotally, they're out there somewhere.
David Barkat, stand-up comedian.
It was like, again, like Max, some of the, like one of the things I love just in terms of visually in the use of Chinese characters. Again, like everything that basically seems like the sort of thing that someone would have given you bad notes to take out. And be like, all right, that was great for the first trip, but you're going to alienate people with that stuff. And it was the texture it provided was so great. But and again, the fearlessness, because we all know that people see that. You read a script, and a lot of people see that and they're like, oh, it's Chinese. This isn't, the reaction that people have to that kind of thing is so non-rational. And you went for, Greg, you remember when we did Freak, there was a Spanish, and there wasn't one joke or line that wasn't understandable. We didn't make sure was understandable. You didn't have to speak Spanish, but a lot of white people walked out of there being like, I don't know all that Spanish I can understand. It was like, and that's what when I saw the Chinese and the stuff and realizing, and also who cares in terms of what you're enjoying, of what you're understanding or not, in terms of knowing that maybe not everything is actually for me to understand in this. Someone's sharing something with me that I don't need to fully assimilate.
Yeah, well, something that I was thinking about is and I think Max and I literally did talk about this at one point, where the way in which that a foreign language can be used as exotic patterns or exotic just sounds and things like that, and then therefore contribute to a kind of like, I don't know, I just sometimes go to like, white people's houses, and then you just see like a calligraphy, right? Usually calligraphy. So I feel like there is always a danger of when you're presenting something that is maybe not going to be understood. There is always a danger of it being not understood in a way where it takes your power away. But I feel like that to me is what, that is the part of it that I feel like you'll just have to do you just have to do what you want to do, because I think that's where the relentlessness or where the fearlessness is coming from, where you're like, actually, no, I'm going to turn these words into something that brings power to me, as opposed to a way in which that, like, something that somebody can put on the wall. It's actually going to be something that feels empowering. And one of the ways that I find it empowering is knowing that, like, I, who do not speak Chinese, can literally like assume it, but I have to be humbled in that I don't know exactly what is being said. And there is a way in which like I know that the play has a secret that I do not necessarily have access to. And I think that to me is a way in which that I felt that you were taking on that power, and the way that you were using that language as such an amazing way to hold power and exert power, and then to ask the audience to open up in a different way. Yeah.
And I think audiences respond to that thing that, that you were talking about. You write from yourself, and then this is not a good enough word, but it has a kind of truth, corny word, authenticity that people respond to. I did this musical Serafina about these South African kids, and it was in 1988, and Mandela was still in prison, and everybody thought he would be in prison forever. And it became the voice, the musical voice of the anti-apartheid movement. Half the show was in Zulu. I don't know who in the audience was understanding it, and it didn't matter. It ran for 7 years because it was true. And your play, as everybody has been saying, has this kind of truth. You don't always get it, but it's true, even though, well, it was what you were saying, Celine, just now.
Yeah, a part of what makes the script relentless I feel is just, you know, it is the not giving a shit. I mean, like the characters of those kids, Max, you know, Leo, and what's the woman's name? What's Bonnie?
Fine.
Yeah.
Bonnie. Their lives are a mess. Both of their lives separately are utter and complete messes, and both of them are lost, and both of them are without direction, and they're both committed to duty, and they're both, you know, they're both struggling to make their lives better. But like I just found that to be so relatable, and the fact that you make no effort to make their lives better than they were. I mean, like that's the thing that's relentless about it. I feel like in the American theater, we're always trying to make things prettier than they are, and you're like, nope, this is what their lives are like. And even though, you know, like I said before, you know, it's a bit of a dark vision. Like that's something that we should all be able to relate to, because the happy ending of the American theater is something that doesn't really exist. At least it doesn't exist in my life. Doesn't exist in, you know, the lives of anyone I know. And I love that you just have such authentic character portrayals.
Yeah, actually, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, that's like, I would say one of my goals in writing this was to make it like, especially for Leo and Bonnie, to make him like as close as possible to like just people, like just real like Asian American people that I just know in real life. Just not that they're like based off real people, but it's just like, maybe this is just, you know, my Gen Z kind of angst, but just looking at most of my generation, like a lot of people I knew were just kind of like, you know, hot messes. That's kind of the thing. Like, I didn't want, I mean, it's not like, you know, a play or a movie saved them from being a hot mess. Like, they're still TBH, like hella hot messes, you know? Like, I didn't want to revive them or whatever, because it's, yeah, and that's what one of the things I was kind of disappointed in with theater back in college, is that you know, they may be a mess, but they become like somehow redeemed some at the end. I'm like, no, like when I look around at people I know, like my friends, like the way we talk, the way like I know their life is going, like, no, like we're all still hot messes. Like that's the shit I see every single day. Like that's what I hear about my conversations. Like I'm not gonna lie to the audience, or even, but more importantly, I'm not gonna lie to myself and like write about that, you know. But yeah, they are hot messes.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I think it's really difficult not to be in 2021. I don't trust anybody who's not a hot mess right now. I'm just like,
Yeah.
we're going through a pandemic, so we are going through a pandemic. I'm like, if you're not a hot mess, I'm like, do you have a pulse? That's how I feel.
Yeah, people who are like really, really calm, like, yo, that's sus. Like, how are you so calm and like collected?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's something that I was feeling a lot, which is that, like, I think that in the pandemic, this is sort of, you know, really now thing, but I feel like because of that, I think that there are some things that just get revealed in moments of like such hardship, just globally and things like that. I don't know. There's something about it where I feel like, and I think art that is that should be celebrated and is worth watching and worth being made is always going to become more relevant and better and deeper with more time, right? More time, and also more as we go through things together. So I feel like, I think I only trust art that's a little bit ahead of its time. You know what I mean? Just like a touch, you know, like just a touch where you're like, oh, it turns out that like what they were seeing was something that was just a little ahead. So now it's feeling, right now I'm sure it's like feeling like, wow, this stuff is so relevant, but it's actually that it's more like that is like the basic part of being a writer and being an artist, which is that like you just have to be able to exist, like look ahead, because everybody's so busy like looking at their feet. So we gotta just, you know, just a little bit, you know, no one has to be a fortune teller, but you know what I mean? Just like the feeling of like, I feel like this is happening and I'm sensitive enough to know that this is something that is going on, you know? And I think that's how I feel about this play, right? Yeah. It will only ripen with age, and more deeply we globally understand how fucked we are. I think it's going to be it's only gonna get better. It's gonna age well.
Oh wow, it's wine.
It's like wine. But bad wine does not age well, unfortunately. That wine becomes garbage. So it's great.
Well, unless someone else has something else they'd like to add, that seemed like a great summation to go out on. Max, congratulations.
Congratulations.
All,
Yeah, thank you.
love your work and welcome. And thank you everyone that participated in this. And thanks so much for joining us. Congratulations, Max. Everyone have a good night.
Congratulations, Max.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations, Max.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming.